Have you ever stared at a food label and had no idea what it was telling you? Then stay tuned, because today I'm breaking it all down for you, and I'm showing you exactly how to read that nutrition label so you can understand and make the best food choices for your own individual goals. Hey guys, Erin here with Healthy Mom Happy Family, and I'm so excited to have you join me here today because I wanted to talk to you about something that I know a lot of us find confusing: the food label. If you've ever walked through the grocery store and picked up food, and stared at the label, and just really had no idea what it was trying to tell you, you're definitely not alone. A lot of my clients have this question, and they come into my office and they tell me they look at the food labels, but they really don't know what it means. What is it telling us? And how does what's on the food label apply to our own health goals? You know, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, lower your blood sugar levels, lower cholesterol, there's information on the food label that can help you. But if you don't really know how to read it and you don't know how to interpret it, it's not really doing much good. So in today's video, I wanted to break it down and walk you through the food label step by step, so you can finally go into the grocery store and feel confident when you're choosing the foods to know exactly what are the right choices for your own individual health needs. So you ready to get started? So when you look at a food label, there's two parts. There's the nutrition facts panel and there's the ingredient list. So to get started, I want to look at the nutrition facts panel first. And the great thing about the nutrition facts panel was it was just recently updated. So you're going to see a little bit more information, and it's a little bit easier to interpret and understand now with the new food labels. So the first thing you always have to look at when you're looking at the nutrition facts panel on a food is, do you know? It's the portion size. Okay, everything on the food label is made up from the portion that's listed there. So if the portion says the food contains a half a cup and you're going to eat a cup, well, then you have to double everything on that nutrition facts panel. You're getting twice as many calories, twice as many grams of fat. All right, so we always start with the portion size because you want to know how that compares to the amount of food you're really planning on eating. All right, so start with the portion size. Next, underneath that is where we see calories. Now, calories can give you a lot of information. We all have different levels of calories we need each day. Whether we're trying to maintain our weight, we're trying to gain weight, lose weight, or just fuel our workouts, we all have different calorie needs. So I can't tell you exactly what calorie level you want to look for, but what I would use is, let's say you have 2,000 calories you eat in a day. Okay, if you're looking at a snack, you don't want the snack to make up half your calories for the day, right? It's a snack. It should make up maybe 10% of your calories for the day, whereas a meal could make up to 1/3 of your calories for the day. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the calorie levels. How many calories are you aiming to take in during the day, and what food are you looking at? Is it a snack? Is it an appetizer? Is it a dessert? Is it the main meal? That's going to make a difference. Now, underneath the calories, this is where we get into some more interesting information. This is information that's really going to help you when we're talking about overall health and nutrient density of the food. And what nutrient density just means is the food containing a lot of nutrients for its volume. You look at something like a piece of fruit, it has a lot of nutrition packed into very few calories. We look at a candy bar, it has a ton of calories and very little nutritional value. All right, so you want to really try to find foods that are giving us the most bang for our buck, foods that have a lot of nutrition with less calories. And also, we want to make sure we're choosing foods that are going to actually fill us up. So this is where we want to look at things like fats and proteins and fiber, because these are the macronutrients that really help us stay full longer. So the food label is going to give you a lot of information about how much nutrition is in the food, what type of nutrition is in the food, and also how long it's going to keep you satisfied. All right, so let's get more into the rest of the food label. So right under calories, this is where we see fat. And this can be confusing because some people still think that they should just avoid fat in general, that eating dietary fat will lead to a gain in body fat. And that is not the case. Okay, not all fat is created equal. There are fats that are really beneficial to health, and if we don't get enough of them in the diet, that can have a negative impact on health. And then there's fats that we want to lessen in the diet. So total fat doesn't give us the whole story on the food label. What it does give you an indication of is because fat is a more filling nutrient. When we eat a food that's rich in fat, we tend to stay satisfied longer. So if you see that the fat content of a food is relatively high, that just gives you a clue that that food's going to keep you full. But what I really want you to focus on is underneath total fat, where it tells you saturated fat and unsaturated fat. This is what I want you to focus on. Because remember, I told you not all fats are created equal. Unsaturated fat is what we want the most of. This is the fat that's usually beneficial to our health. A lot of these are plant-based fats. They have anti-inflammatory properties. They can protect our heart versus damage it. So you want the majority of the fat that you choose in the diet to come from unsaturated fat. On the other hand, saturated fat is more of an inflammatory fat. A little bit in the diet is okay, but we don't want to make it our sole source of fat. So the goal here is to keep total saturated fat less than 10% of your total calories for the day. All right? Now, you don't have to break this down and do all the math, but generally for most people, if we keep it to about 10-15 grams of saturated fat or less during the day, we're going to be within that window. So just remember, easy when you're looking at total fat is choose foods that are made up majorly of unsaturated fat and limit the ones that have a large amount of saturated fat. Now, underneath fat, you're going to see cholesterol on a food label. Now, if you're somebody who is trying to bring your cholesterol levels down, I don't want you to panic if a food shows that there's some cholesterol in it. There has not been a link between eating dietary cholesterol and seeing your own cholesterol numbers go up. In fact, what drives cholesterol up is more saturated fat, inflammatory foods, and even added sugars in the diet. So a little bit of cholesterol in a food is fine. The general recommendation is about 300 milligrams of cholesterol a day. Okay, but if you're eating an egg or you are eating shellfish and you see there's cholesterol in it, I wouldn't panic because those foods are still pretty low in saturated fat. There's no added sugars in them. So I wouldn't focus so much on the cholesterol. If you're trying to lower your cholesterol levels, I would look at added sugars and I would look at saturated fat as my key sources of information versus the cholesterol on the label. But to give you that range, we're trying to keep it under 300 milligrams per day for cholesterol. Now, as we scroll down the nutrition facts panel, you're gonna see sodium. And sodium is a nutrient that most of us get way too much in our diet. So the recommendation for sodium is 2,300 milligrams per day or less. Now, most people take in between 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams per day, almost double what we should be taking in. And too much sodium can increase water retention, it can raise blood pressure, and it can even drive the risk of osteoporosis and low bone density. So we really want to be cautious about how much sodium is coming in our diet. You'll find a lot of sodium in more processed foods because it's a preservative. Now, you can look at the milligrams of sodium and count them up during the day, but that can be a little overwhelming. It's a lot of math. So if you just scroll over a bit and you see next to sodium the percentiles that are on the nutrition facts panel, this is a lot of valuable information because these percentiles are based on the recommended daily value. So I told you we should try to keep sodium to about 2,300 milligrams per day or less. So that percentage is how much percent of sodium is in that food compared to that 2,300 milligrams per day. So this is what I like to tell my clients to do. If you're choosing a food that's a snack, try to keep that percent of sodium to no more than 10 to 15% of your total daily value. For a meal, it should be no more than about 30 to 35%. So instead of worrying about counting milligrams, I would just look over to that percentage with sodium and try to keep that percent lower depending on if the food is a snack or a meal choice. Now, under sodium, you are going to see carbohydrates. And this is where I get most of the questions about the food label, because carbohydrates give us a lot of information about fiber and sugar in a food. Now, what I love about the updated food label is it now calls out not just total sugar in a food, but how much of it is added sugar. And this is incredibly valuable information because naturally occurring sugars and added sugars act very differently in your body, and naturally occurring sugar doesn't need to be avoided and can offer health benefits because it's usually bound with fiber and antioxidants. Whereas added sugar provides no nutritional value and we want to limit it in the diet. So under total carbohydrate, I want you to look down and look for fiber first. Higher fiber foods are going to keep us full longer. They keep blood sugar more steady throughout the day. So a food that contains carbohydrate, if it also contains fiber, it's going to be a more slow digested carbohydrate and better for us. So trying to look for foods that contain fiber is key. But not every food's going to have fiber. If the food that you're choosing is strictly a protein choice, it's not going to have fiber. So don't panic if there's zero fiber on the label. But if it's a food rich in carbohydrate, you want to see that some of that carbohydrate is coming from fiber. Now, our goal for fiber throughout the day, most of us should aim for about 30 grams per day. The average person takes in only about 14 grams of fiber. So use this as your gauge and look for foods that are rich in fiber so it'll help you to reach that 30-gram goal by the end of the day. Now, under fiber is where you're going to see total sugar. And as I mentioned, total sugar and added sugar are very different. So total sugar can give you some valuable information, but I really want you to focus on the added sugar underneath. Added sugar is what we want to limit in the diet because it's providing a lot of sugar, spikes blood sugar, can increase insulin resistance, can make us hold on to more belly fat, and it really comes with very little nutritional value. So the goal with added sugar is we want no more than 10% of our total calories for the day to come from added sugar. So when you're looking at a food that contains carbohydrate, The rule of thumb is look for it to also contain a good amount of fiber, 3 grams or more, and the least amount of added sugar possible. That's going to be your goal to find the most nutrient-dense food. And then finally on the label is where you will see protein. And protein is very valuable because it slows down digestion, it keeps us full longer, it helps our body to build and maintain muscle mass and repair tissues, so we need to make sure we're getting enough protein in our diet. Most of us get plenty of protein, so I wouldn't really panic about counting your grams of protein during the day, but what I would recommend is that you make sure if you are eating a meal or a snack that you want to keep you full for an extended period of time, that it does contain a source of protein, because it will help you feel satisfied and prevent hunger and cravings later on. So there you have it. That is how to read the nutrition facts panel. Now the second part of a nutrition label is the ingredient list. And this is what tells you what's really in the food you're eating. We can look and see how many grams of carbohydrate and fiber and protein, but we don't really know what we're taking in if we don't look at the ingredient list. Now the ingredients go by amount. So the very first ingredient is what makes up the majority of the food. And then as you go down the list, there's less and less of those ingredients. So if the first ingredient is whole grain oats, you know the majority of that food is oats. It's a whole grain, it's a healthy choice. If the first ingredient is high fructose corn syrup, we know that's an added sugar, very little nutritional value, probably not the best choice to eat that food very often. So the ingredient list can really help you to understand what you're truly eating and the nutritional benefits that it can contain. So the bottom line when it comes to reading food labels is look at both parts. Make sure to look at the nutrition facts panel as well as the ingredient list. And together, that can help you to make the best food choices to meet your own health goals. So make sure you let me know, comment below and tell me what part of the food label do you tend to focus on. And don't forget, if you liked today's video, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a new video. Thanks for joining me, and I can't wait to see you next time.